Let's go to Rudy Giuliani, who's going to tell us that, of course, Obama's handling it all wrong and that Bush handled it right. Okay, before we get to that second part, which is very questionable, let's start with the first part on how Obama should be fighting the war on terror. Clip number 4.
I'm very hopeful that President Obama turned a corner yesterday. He first used the words, thank goodness, war on terror. Hasn't done that since he was a candidate.
He did do it throughout the campaign.
He did, but then once he became president, they're going to reject war on terror. I think it was an effort to separate himself from President Bush. The reality is, whether he likes it or not, we are at war with terrorists. They haven't forgotten it. And if he recognizes we're at war with terror, a lot of things follow from that. Then they're enemy combatants. They're not just mere domestic criminals. Then we don't close Guantanamo. I mean, it's totally absurd.
He seemed to be putting it off for some time.
Darn right he is. I mean, this was a criticism of Bush that was a pure partisan political criticism. When you look behind it, I know people that have gone to Guantanamo. You do. People I respect, including Democrats, who tell me Guantanamo is better than half the federal prisons.
President Bush said he wanted to close it as well.
Well, he did because of the pressure.
Okay, first of all, I don't know what enemy combatants are. I think he meant combatants. But, all right, whatever. That's a minor point. So if you apparently say the magic words war on terror, well, then bombers won't get on planes. I'm sorry for failing to see the logic in that. It's so profoundly irrational that it just drives me crazy that people like Stephanopoulos sit there and they're like, oh, really? Fascinating point. Well, let's move on to the next question. And, oh, if you Obama realized he can't close down Guantanamo. That's why he's delaying things. No, he tried to close it down, and the Senate voted against it. What's he going to do? Look, I take a lot of issue with what things that Obama has done, including on, indefinite detentions, et cetera, in Guantanamo. But he definitely tried to close Guantanamo, and they voted against it. There's nothing he could do. It's not. Giuliani makes it seem like Obama was like, oh, I've realized Guantanamo is so important, I can't close it, otherwise people are going to get on planes with bombs. That is definitely not the case, and it makes no goddamn sense. That's the stuff that drives me crazy. And now let's go to the next part where he's going to tell us all the things that Bush did right. Interesting. Clip number 5.
It isn't that President Bush did everything right. This whole thing is like they say, well, President Bush sent people to Yemen. Well, he shouldn't have, right? He shouldn't have sent people to Yemen. Obviously, now if he could do it again, 1 in 5 people that have been released from Guantanamo have gotten involved in terrorist activities. At least. That's what we can measure. Well, that obviously was a mistake. What he should be doing is following the right things that Bush did. One of the right things he did was treat this as a war on terror. We had no domestic attacks under Bush. We've had one under Obama. Number 2, he should correct the things that Bush didn't do right. Sending people to Yemen was wrong.
All right, now, to be fair to Giuliani, he did point out some of the things that Bush did wrong. And the point that I've been making, hey, wait a minute, those guys in Yemen were released by Bush. And, he makes a fair point. Under Bush, there was no terrorist attack. Wait a minute. What was the thing that Rudy Giuliani ran his presidential campaign on? Oh, right, 9/11. Remember, Mayor? You were America's mayor when the worst terrorist attack in United States history happened under, that's right, George W. Bush's watch. I like that little omission, like, oh, wow, that 9/11 thing. Oh, I mean, what are you considering that a domestic terrorist attack? And again, Stephanopoulos, not a word. He just moved on to the next question. Look, he probably regrets that. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that because you can't let that slide. That's crazy, right? But even if you say, all right, after 9/11, I don't know why you'd give him a pass on 9/11, right? And a lot of people aren't anymore, so that's good to see. But after 9/11, the shoe bomber, which is nearly identical to the underwear bomber. Same chemicals, got on a plane, same MO, etc. That happened on Bush's watch. The anthrax attacks. You can count the DC sniper. So those are 2 to 3, at least, domestic attacks after the worst terrorist attack in United States history. And I love the way the Republicans also don't count anything against our allies. They're like, oh, London got bombed, Spain got bombed, all these other countries. Who cares? They had it coming. I mean, look, to be fair, they're not saying they had it coming, but they don't count that. No. That's their business. That's not our business. What happened? I thought the coalition of the willing, and that was going to help everybody, et cetera, et cetera. All of these talking points are absolute nonsense. And then finally, for Giuliani's point was, because Bush used the magic words, war on terror, we had no terrorist attacks. And so when you see the real evidence, that point that was incredibly irrational to begin with is flat out proven wrong by what Giuliani's saying. In fact, we did have terrorist attacks, even though Bush said the magic words. Again, the Republicans are so frivolous. Instead of addressing the real issues, who's doing what wrong, why did the intelligence fail there, they talk about words. He said the wrong words. If he'd said the right words, I guess that kid wouldn't have gotten on the plane, or that guy. No one in their right mind can believe that.